Bye! My name is Josh Miller. I own Riverstone Kennels, and I've been training gun dogs for more than 16 years. I have field trialed, I've hunt tested, but at the end of the day, I'm a duck hunter. You might find that the duck in our Duck Dogs podcast is spelled uniquely. The UK stands for my British Labs. I love my British Labs. I love what they offer me, both as a part of my family and the high motor in the field. As you're going to find, I have some pretty special dogs. Follow along in our podcast series here as we talk about both in the field hunting and in the field training situations that will hopefully help you progress with your dog at home. Welcome to another episode of Duck Dogs, everybody. I'm your host, Josh Miller. I'm joined yet again today by Mr. Bret as we recap our recent trip to North Dakota. But before we get into it, let's make sure to thank our sponsors that make this show possible. First, the presenting sponsor of this show, Eukanuba. Eukanuba Premium Performance Sport 3020 is a blend of food that I have my dogs on, and I feed my dogs at the kennel. So great benefits, great food. I would highly suggest you check them out, www.eukanuba.com. Also, thank you to Gun Dog Supply. Gun Dog Supply is your one-stop shop for all of your hunting and training needs. So as we head into season and you need to gear up for the season, make sure to head over to Gun Dog Supply. They're great people, great products, great customer service. You will thoroughly enjoy shopping there, www.gundogsupply.com. Also, thank you to Sitka Gear. Sitka Gear is your premium option in outdoor clothing that will keep you comfortable for longer, meaning that those precious days you get in the field, you can enjoy to the fullest. www.sitkagear.com. Also, thank you to Kent Cartridge. Kent Cartridge is the shotgun shell of choice for us here at Duck Dogs, Riverstone Kennels, Gun Dog, not necessarily Gun Dog Supply, but I'm sure Rob shoots it too. Kent Cartridge, we just have had great success, with that shell, both in the upland field, in the waterfowl field, and they also have poppers for training, which is super unique. Not a lot of people making that stuff anymore, so go check them out at Kent Cartridge. Also, thank you to Lucky Duck. Lucky Duck is your 5-star crash test rated kennel, both in the intermediate and in the large size. So no matter which size your dog needs, you can be sure that they're traveling as safe as they possibly can. They also have the fan, they also have the kennel cover, they also have the cot, they also have the pad. Tons of options, tons of accessories for your dog. www.luckyduck.com.
Retriever Roadmap.
Oh gosh, I almost signed off there without hitting that. Thank you to Retriever Roadmap. Retriever Roadmap is your premium online destination for training your gun dog at home. Doesn't even have to be gun dog; could just be your dog. So www.retrieverroadmap.com. I would say that you would enjoy that program, but I'm a little biased. So thanks for the shout out there, because I was like, all right, we're gonna wrap this thing up, and then you gave me that face, and I was like, oh gosh, who am I missing? That's what happens when we do this on the road and we don't have our notepads in front of us. So anyway, recapping North Dakota. So before we get into North Dakota, here's something I thought was super interesting. I've seen a lot of this recently. We have a lot of people that listen to this internationally, which I think is really, not only is it really neat. Like, okay, so I've had people reach out from Scotland, from England, from Andorra. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
I think that's right.
From Spain, from Australia, from Canada. I mean, like
Iceland.
Okay, all over. And so this is really interesting. So one of the things that I assume will be in our recap is some of the things that happened to us on these hunts that was less than desirable. It was out of our control. But I want to dig into it a little bit, because I'm realizing with such an international audience that it may not be understood of why these hurdles even came up.
Right.
So it's pretty interesting. But I would like to say a thank you to everyone, specifically internationally, that does tune into this, because I think it's really neat, and I love hearing the feedback. Like you just had, I don't say names out of privacy, so if I ever bring you up here on the show, that's why. But just had a great little conversation over social media with a listener from Andorra. Gosh, I hope I'm saying that right, Andorra.
I think that's right.
But it's just super neat. I mean, they hunt very differently than we do, so I'm always interested in that, and would love to go experience all this stuff firsthand someday. But really neat, and so I just kind of like that piece of this. I mean, it's incredible what technology does, and the reach that it allows you to have.
Yeah, everybody that's got the same type of interest, hobbies, and stuff, it just brings you all together. So the connection with the dogs, and obviously leads into hunting and everything. It's just cool how that brings everybody together. So
for sure. Okay, so what is, like, instead of just going like day by day, because we could break down day by day. We've already done that.
Yeah.
Give me your quick, elevator speech on this is how this went.
Frustrating, I think.
That was a really quick elevator.
It was frustrating. It was a frustrating sense that we were on birds. We just had a lot of inconvenient things happen to us. And then the last day, which was set up to be a super banger, the ducks decided not to show up. So, it's one of them things where we were hunting afternoons because the ducks all of a sudden weren't feeding in the morning. And I was talking to a friend this morning who was just up there at the same time, a friend of yours and I's, and he said the same thing. He said ducks did absolutely nothing in the mornings. They were feeding just in the evenings, and that's when they had their most success. So, it was from day one, we had a guy bump the roost in his truck. The day two was a really good shoot. It was a fantastic shoot.
It really was. It was fantastic.
Yes, I don't want to play that off as it wasn't. It was a great shoot.
It was.
It was
one of those moments of like, this is why you do this,
right? Well,
for that one time.
Like the second flock that came in was a group of 200 pintails. I mean, you don't see that every day.
All the way to the ground.
All the way to the ground.
Yeah.
Yes.
From a mile high.
From a mile high.
It was awesome.
Yeah. To then we had a day off because we didn't really have anything lined up, so we hit the pavement or gravel roads, and
there's no pavement.
There's no pavement, and we found a couple other good fields, so we went and set up in another field, and then we had some guys come in and set up in the slough behind us, and they had a good hunt, but it didn't help us at all. So that was one of the sloughs that the birds were going in, so they bumped them when they got there, and then it just was bad luck. And then leading to the last day that we stayed through Saturday to Saturday night, and there was a ton of birds in that field. I mean, a ton of birds.
Thousands and thousands.
Thousands and thousands. And I got to describe it a little bit because it's kind of unique. Nothing that I see back in Ohio, and I haven't seen fields like that around here either, but they cut the corn super high. So literally those stalks were, 4 foot off the ground yet. So they just cut, just right at the ears. So it was a super high cornfield, but those ducks were going in there like flooded timber, and not that I haven't seen it. I have seen ducks go into that before. It's just, something that you don't see. Most of the time up here, we're hunting barley and wheat and bean fields. So, super low fields where hides are harder. We had a great hide. We were able to hide very well in the 2x4 blinds, in the rows of corn, and the wind was right for everything. And, man, the ducks just didn't show up. We seen them. We seen some go to a field probably a mile and a half from us, but for them being in there for 2 days straight to not show up was a little frustrating. And it's hunting. It's hunting.
Well, so first off, I'd like to clarify a couple things. Just a stat correction. The stalks were about 3.5 feet tall, not 4. And the reason I know that is because I have scratches all up and down the brand new trailer.
Right.
Oh my gosh, it just makes me sick.
Yep. I'm the one that's seen that and had to bring it up to you just so.
Yeah, and my ears have been smoking ever since.
It's not a laughing matter either. It's just
no.
It's just it sucks.
So frustrating is the right. If you're to use a word, that's it. I too don't want to overshadow the one hunt because it was phenomenal.
Oh,
I mean, that is why you do this.
Yep.
And the thing is if we went on a trip and we're like, we would take one hunt like that just to have that one day versus, a decent day all the days, like we would both say that, and we should be sitting here happy because we got the one.
Yep.
But it's just human nature to get greedy, and after you get that one, you want another one like that.
For sure.
And that last hunt should have been.
Yep.
And one of the reasons, so we had actually, I shouldn't say we, Travis found it.
Mm-hmm.
Travis found that field. He had got with the farmer, and the farmer wanted to hunt it himself. And what he had told Travis, who's, Travis is a great friend of ours, he told him that he had to wait until Saturday because the farm was hoping to be done with his work and he could hunt with us then, which he didn't end up able, which he didn't miss anything.
Right.
But that's why we had to sit and let it sit.
Right. Yep. Yeah, you shot a few, but it wasn't. I mean,
yeah, we shot a few, but it wasn't like it should have been.
It wasn't like it should have been.
Yeah.
No. And I think it's very important one to point out because I know that they listen to this. Our trip, yes, it may have been frustrating on our end, and maybe we didn't accomplish some of the things that we wanted to accomplish. But for one, super fun time. Great people.
Oh, yeah.
I know for a fact that they put in all kinds of time, effort, miles, all on their own, to try to have some successful hunts, for us when we get out there. And he did all that. It just was up to Mother Nature, and it didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
So super fun time, regardless. Besides the birds, we all had a great time. It's just, I just think it's very important to say that because the work was done. It just they didn't do what we were hoping they would do.
Right. Well, one of the things that I do that I really do enjoy about that trip is that we all go do the work together. Like Travis is certainly carrying the bulk of that weight on him. And you can see it tears him up more than anybody else when stuff doesn't work out. But there's nothing he can do about it. This is part of it. But we're not going with an outfitter, right? We're not going with someone that we're paying to take us out, and we expect that he does all this work. We expect that we go out there and do what we did, put miles on, scout together, find the field. He's usually the one that's getting permission. Being the local guy that knows everybody for sure.
Right.
But I would hope I at least feel like we try to do our part in what we're doing too, and we put on miles and watch fields and do all that too. So, but I think we all know too that that's how it is, right? Like when you go to an outfitter, I feel like you expect there should be a slammer hunt every day lined up. All I'm doing is I want to come here, I want to pull the trigger, I want to go have some good food, have drinks at night, go to bed.
Yep.
Right? That's not why we do this.
Right.
We, as in you and I and our group.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And we've actually not invited people back because the questions come up of like, well, how many birds are out there? And because that's not what it's about for us. But once we're there, I think we all get flustered when it's like this should have been it. So one of the things I want to talk about a little bit is the hunting opportunity, especially for our international, listeners, because it is very different than what I think a lot of you guys see. So, especially in North Dakota. So in North Dakota, if you do not have your property posted, now posted means either signs on the perimeter edges stating that it is your property and there is no trespassing allowed, or electronically on apps such as Onyx that you can post electronically as well. So you can pull up that map and you can see that property is posted. If your property is not posted, then anybody can go on it and hunt it. Okay. Now, it's very strange because it's not like that in the majority of the states. I actually don't know any other state that is the case.
I don't either.
And I think there's two schools of thoughts because we actually had this conversation, with Travis, who's a local guy, while we're out there, because he wants it gone. right? He's like, man, it's ridiculous that people can come and just go on people's property because they don't know the farmer, they don't know who he is, which means they don't care. That means they'll tear stuff up, leave garbage, get it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I also get the other side of it, of if you're a farmer and you don't care if people hunt, but you don't want everybody and their brother every day coming up and banging on your door asking for permission, just leave it not posted, and then you don't have to deal with it. Like, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get both sides of it. I guess if I were to lean one way, I'd rather have it to where you can't just go on it. You have to go ask permission, right? Because that's going to push a lot of people, towards being more respectful,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that's the big thing.
Yep.
But it's very interesting. I can tell you that the local guys and gals that we talk to out there hate that rule.
Mm-hmm.
But the local guys and gals we're talking to are mostly hunters,
Right.
Not the farmers. So it's an interesting situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much land out there, where you don't see homes and farms, and there's just a lot of. Maybe the farmer lives 2 hours away, or whatever the case is. So I see the pros and the cons about it. I agree. I'm not a big fan of it, but it does offer an opportunity for folks that struggle getting in somewhere else. That gives them, an opportunity to go on there. But as long as they're respectful to their land, and like you said, don't rut it up, don't leave your trash, don't leave your hauls, don't leave this, don't leave that, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're respectful to it, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm the same way. In Ohio, you have to actually have permission slip. So
really?
You have to carry a slip with you that the farmer has signed for liability that says, he's given you permission to hunt there. If there's an accident, then he's not liable for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's different in every state, and obviously North Dakota being, you can hunt anything that's not posted and go at it. And so, but there's a lot of stuff that's posted, and there's some stuff that's not posted. And Travis, he's got some connections up there, so he knows a lot of people. He grew up there, and knows a lot of those folks, and so yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
So where this came into play for us, most of the property we're hunting is posted property, which again, this is where it helps having a guy like Travis, where he just has relationships. He knows a lot of the guys that are out there. So even if it's posted, it may not be posted necessarily for waterfowl. It may be posted because the guy deer hunts, right? Or maybe posted just because the guy had a bad experience and doesn't want someone he doesn't know out there, right? So most of the time we're hunting posted property. But when that posted property is close to non-posted property, that's when we have some of the issues like someone driving in a field and setting up on, or bumping birds out and setting up on a slough or whatever. That was one of the questions that I received is, why do we field hunt so much? Why don't we go sit on water? And, it's not that I'm opposed to water hunting. I mean, we water hunt a lot, specifically in Arkansas. We water hunt all the time. I just love field hunting. I love the big groups. I love finishing them right to the ground. I love all that. I love the work that goes into scouting to get on that right spot. Man, when I was young, I'd go out to North Dakota, and it was just me and my dog Easton, and that's what we'd do is we'd go on a little slough. We'd shoot a couple of gadwall, and if we were lucky, a mallard, and that was our hunt. And we went out there to North Dakota because we knew that there was a good chance to pull the trigger a few times every morning, right? Now I'm kind of looking for that hunt that we had the second day, right? That, oh my gosh, kind of a hunt. And that's where you get that. You get that on those fields and getting in the right feed and getting on the X and doing all your work and brushing in right and having the right spread. And there's just so much that goes into it, right? But it's that much more rewarding. Travis and I were actually texting this morning about that hunt, and it was man, we didn't even have to shoot. It was just like Travis said, he's like, I don't even think I loaded my gun. I just sat there and smiled because you see all the smiling faces inside the blind. You see a guy like Kyle, who was on here a few episodes back.
Yep.
He's never been on a hunt like that before.
Yep.
Literally mind blowing, right? When you see birds do the amazing things that birds are capable of, and then you see that times, 200 to 300 that are coming in at once. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm. It's great to experience.
That's why you do this.
That's exactly right.
It's the camaraderie, it's the dogs, it's all that stuff. But if those birds didn't do something to make you say, wow,
yep,
it's just not as enchanting.
Yep, for sure.
And there's just something about that.
Yep, yeah. I think it's interesting, to talk a little bit about water and, in certainly specific areas, and maybe some tactics on how to hunt it. Because a lot of folks, they find body of water, and if the ducks were roosting there, well, if you go in first thing in the morning in the dark, you're going to bump those ducks right away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you've patterned them, and if they're going out to feed, why not let them leave on their own?
Mm-hmm.
And then go in, set your stuff up, and catch them as they come back.
Mm-hmm.
So why bunt them, get them nervous, where they may not come back? Maybe some of them do, but a majority of them probably go, I got bumped out of here by something, I'm not going back here. I'm going to go find someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
Let those birds leave. Then shoot them when they come back, because they're coming back there. And that's a lot of fun to do. I've been on a lot of successful hunts, and if you get to sleep in a little bit, you don't have to be there right at the crack of dawn. Not being lazy. I'm just saying, it's just it's a neat opportunity. And then at night, I get it when you've got a body of water that's got a lot of birds on it, but more than likely that's where they're staying for the night. And if, like in our instance, we're hunting fields, so they're going out to feed, then going back to that roost. Well, if you shoot them on that roost, then they're going to go somewhere else and roost.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've changed their pattern because they've flown out of that area, so to speak. So I get it. Sometimes the guys don't have options, or maybe it's the last day of season or whatever it is. You can go, hunt that roost. But, a lot of times, that's what I like. That's what I like to do. Some tactics that I like doing hunting water. Obviously, at home, I hunt a big lake, and you're just getting birds milling back and forth. You will see the birds come back from feeding at, different areas of the lake or whatever, and you'll pick them off as they're coming back from feeding, or you'll get just them milling around through the mid-mornings or whatever. But, when you get specifically on a body of water that the birds are staying on and coming back to, then let them go out on their own and, shoot them as they come back. Now, more likely, you're only going to get one hunt out of that, and you're going to have to go find something else. But it's probably going to be a very successful hunt.
Well, and what you're talking about is scouting.
Correct.
Right? And I think that's the one thing that it's excuse me. Excuse me. Bret can edit that cough out. So it's the one thing that I think everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, the majority of people want to skip is scouting. Because it's not as fun as being in it. It's not as fun as pulling the trigger. It's not as fun as to me it's the obedience. If you're gonna relate it to training, it's the obedience. It's the stuff nobody wants to go do, except for a few select people that do fall in love with it. And it's also the most important part. Like, we could go set up on a slough in the morning and again try to pull the trigger a few times, right? Like, you're not getting that wow. Like, just like if you don't put the priority on obedience into your dog, it doesn't mean that you won't ever run a blind retrieve. It doesn't, but you're certainly not going to run it like if you put in that time. Mm-hmm. You're certainly not going to have the hunt you could have if you put in your time scouting. Yep. I mean, we had we drove out Monday, and then we had Monday afternoon, and then we had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Monday was scout. Tuesday was
scout
hunt bust. Then it was Wednesday scout hunt slam. Then it was
scout.
Then it was scout hunt. And when I'm saying two, it's AM PM.
Right.
Then it was scout half hunt, kind of.
Yeah.
And then it was scout hunt. So we had a full day in there. We didn't do anything but scout. We didn't hunt. Mm-hmm. Like, we could have went and sat up in the field. We could have just said, hey, let's just try to get lucky, but we didn't because we were trying to get on that next big hunt. And so there's a lot to be said about that scouting process and spending the time in doing that to make sure you're going to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. Yeah, it's just, I know I've mentioned it in previous episodes, but that's what's very rewarding about scouting. When you scout and you've done all the legwork and then you go and have a successful hunt, that right there is super rewarding. It's just no different than at a football game, being a football player. You practice your tail off all week and then you go and have a dominating game. It feels great, right?
Because you put in the work.
You put in the work.
Right.
Golfing, you go to the range every night for 2 hours a night. Then you go out and shoot a 500 par. Very rewarding because you put in that work. It's no different. Hunting's the exact same thing.
Training.
Yep, training. Training's exact 100%. Training's the same way. You train your dog all summer long, spring, summer, all the way into the fall. And to watch that dog with the first retrieve, or watch that dog with the first long blind, or watch that dog with the first double or triple, or whatever, whatever those goals are that you wanted to see and accomplish, that's all rewarding for the work that you put in.
That's right. Well, and we talk so much about the process, right? And we talk so much about taking your time and redshirting your dog and really dedicating yourself to the obedience and going at the dog's pace. You don't have to do that. But you're also, like, when you get to where you're hoping to be and it's frustrating, then you don't have anyone to really blame but yourself. Right? Like, if you didn't put the time in training all summer and you bring your dog out this weekend and he doesn't perform like how you want him to perform, you can't be there upset at the dog, right? That's on you.
Yep.
It's the same thing.
And usually there's embarrassment with those situations.
For sure.
Oh, he's done this before. He's done that before. But I haven't worked with him in 3 months.
Right. Right.
So same thing with calling. Calling. Guys don't pick up their call until the night before duck season starts.
That's me.
Well, yes. But you know what I mean? You guys, like when I was calling a lot, I called all through the summer. I traveled around and competed, and then guys were like, man, how do you do that? It's like, I worked my tail off to be able to sound like, that and be successful at doing stuff like that. It's the same thing. Josh, wow, your dogs are so good. Why are they like that? Because you work your tail off with your dogs to get them where you want them to be. And it all comes up down to expectations. It's everybody has different expectations. Now, if you're happy with, your dog having getting a double retrieve and can't go get the blind, if that's where you're at, then don't get frustrated because that dog can't go get that blind. But if you worked your tail off and then he gets that double and then gets that blind, that's super rewarding because you put the time in. But you can't blame anybody but yourself if he doesn't get that blind because you haven't worked with him, doing that.
You were almost to the point that I was trying to make. You're almost there. You veered off. So the point that I agree with all that. And the point that I was trying to make was that you may not want the slam that we're talking about.
Right.
You may just want to go sit and pull the trigger 3 or 4 times and have your dog pick up a couple birds, then go back and have a old North Dakota burger and fries, and sit in a motel room and just kind of have like more of a relaxing trip. Like, I get that.
Yep.
Just like not every dog has to be trained at the level that I talk about training the dog at, right? Like it's all, that's what's neat about this, right? We all have different levels of expectation. We all have different levels we're striving for. Like, it doesn't all have to be, that same level. But that's just what we're trying to do.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
But we're also, I think some of that is, we have multiple dog situations. Almost every time you go out, you have 2 dogs. Then, like on this particular trip, Travis was bringing his dog Knox multiple times. So we had 3 dogs in the field. And, I know you mentioned the other day something about, like Tucker. You're just trying to get, and Tucker had he was on a couple of those bad hunts.
Yeah,
he had
not his fault.
Not his fault. I think he had one good one the last trip. But this trip, when it was his turn, it didn't work out.
Yep.
Brock was the same way. You waited to hunt Brock until the last day and thought it was going to be a banger, and it
wasn't.
We shot a few, but it wasn't, what we thought it was going to be. But like you said, there's some guys and there's I'm like that sometimes too. I love having a good shoot, but sometimes it's nice to go out, and shoot just a few birds, watch some good dog work, and call it a day. So it's totally up to your expectations.
Yeah, it's yeah, I agree, and I think what's so neat about this is that there's so many ways of doing this, right? Like yeah, we were upset when those guys drive in, bump all the birds off the roost, and set up and shoot a couple birds as they trickle back in. Meanwhile, those were the birds we were planning on hunting.
Right.
So who knows where they ended up going to, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's like we were upset, but for them, that could have been the hunt of the year for them.
They had a great shoot.
Yeah, I don't know if it was great. I mean, they probably killed 6, 8 somewhere in there, But for them, who knows?
Right.
It could have been. And so I guess that's kind of where I'm going, with this whole thing, is that there's just so many different levels.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's up to everybody else. And sometimes, I think a lot of people get wrapped up in, the numbers, and I don't want to categorize us in that fact, because, there's a lot more to being in the outdoors and hunting than, shooting 50, 60, 70, 80 ducks a day. But it's fun, sure. It's a blast, but, being out there with your friends and all the, the dogs, and watching the dog get some work is fun. But, then it can get frustrating when, you have this big vision and plan of what's going to happen, and one little thing changes that whole situation. And, not saying you're wasting time, but, it comes down to pretty much that.
Right. So let me get into the most difficult part of my season. And because this is, bar none, without a doubt, the most difficult part of my entire season. And that is getting all of my dogs adequate work. And you take a hunt like this. Okay, so we had 6 days, 6 full days that we had out there that we were hunting. One of those hunts was really good, which I had bud and strike on that hunt. 2 of those hunts never pulled the trigger. Okay, and meanwhile, I have 5 dogs that I'm trying to hunt in 6 days. And so even by doubling them up, there were dogs that didn't get to retrieve.
Yep.
That is really tough.
Yep.
And it's very frustrating for me as I'm trying to get these dogs all, adequate work, adequate exposure. Like you talk about, sometimes when I tell people that I hunted, about 90 days last year, they're like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. That's awesome. And it is, but it's a necessity to try to get those dogs, because so I've got, if I'm looking at all my dogs I'm trying to hunt in the year between Brock, Clyde, Bud, Strike, Solo, now Tucker, Bracken, right? Like, that's 7. Am I missing somebody?
No.
I think that's it. Okay. So that's 7. So let's just say I hunted 70 days. 70 days is a ton of days.
It's a long time.
That means each one of those dogs gets 10 hunts a year if I take them one by one, which I do like to do, because I just think that there's the one-on-one time I really like. I love being there with one dog. They get all the attention today. They get all the work today. It's about them. Like, I really do like that. Sometimes I feel a little forced into hunting 2 or more dogs of my own at a time. But that's the hardest part. And so then you take those 10 days, and let's just say half of those are not good hunts. That means each one of these dogs gets 5 good hunts a year. You start breaking it down like that, it becomes significantly different than, oh my gosh, you hunted 70 days last year.
Right.
Or 90, or whatever it ends up being, right? It's an extraordinary amount of days. But that's why. Like, this isn't a party for us. This isn't we're out and you partying and drinking, and like this is like a vacation, and this is like margaritas on the beach and then shooting ducks in the morning. Like, this is not that.
Right.
Like, this is work, and it stresses myself out when I don't get the dogs the work. It stresses you out when you can't get the content that you need for Retriever Roadmap, because we're doing a lot of this in the field stuff, which is super impactful, and I think we're doing some really, really cool stuff. Can I talk about what we're doing?
Absolutely.
Again, with Coach's Corner. Like, Coach's Corner is super, super cool, you guys. Like, if you are on Retriever Roadmap, you need to check it out. Is it coming?
It's coming.
Okay, it's coming. Okay, so this is a preview of this, right? But Coach's Corner, basically what I did is, like, if you guys remember the old John Gruden QB camp, where John Gruden would sit down with the quarterback and watch film and be like, okay, like this happened here. What are you reading here? Like, what's the defense doing? Or why did you make this throw? Or why did you do this? Like, that's what we're doing on these hunts. Okay. And it's amazing how many of these situations and how, incredibly talented, Bret is to capture this, of the in the moment, something happens. Oh my gosh, we have it all on film. Let's talk about this. Why did we do this? Or why did you send him on this? Or why did you blow that whistle here? Why did you give the cast like that? Or why did there's so many things that come up. And so it might be my favorite part of Retriever Roadmap so far.
Mm-hmm.
Train the Trainer will probably always be my favorite, but this is a very, very close, right up there. I really, really like this. But going back to the hunt part of it, like when we're on a hunt like this and we have 6 days and one of the 6 days is productive, that's very stressful on us because there's a lot of time, there's a lot of finances, there's a lot of things that go into this.
Yep.
And so I guess where I'm going with this is that it's more than just going out and hunting and pulling trigger. We're doing that.
Right.
We're enjoying the company we're with. We love every second of it, but that doesn't mean that we don't still have a job to do.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about getting those dogs on birds, feathers in the mouth. Sometimes that's easier said than done.
Yep. I think, especially compared to last year, obviously that this round wasn't as successful, and you've got 2 new dogs that you're also trying to to get some feathers in their mouth and get the retrieve count going, and it's just with Solo and Tucker. So, I know just tough start.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a lot of work to do now going in, but I think we got a lot of exciting stuff coming up that we'll I know we're going to have some good things going on. So
for sure.
Yeah. Just it's an interesting side of, or I guess take of everything, that people don't probably see or understand.
Mm-hmm.
So, coming from our side of things. So it's fun. You put a lot of work in, you get to hang out with your buddies, do all that fun stuff. But like I said, at the end of the day, we're trying to do a lot of work, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. So
yeah, well, you brush it off and you move on. So we have a bunch of stuff lined up for the rest of the year. We have Missouri. We have a lot in Arkansas, both ducks and speckled bellies. There's a lot of good stuff that's going to be coming up here. So more opportunities. I just wish that we could buy more than one North Dakota license.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would love to spend more time out there.
The 14 days,
It's not enough.
It's not enough.
No, it's really not.
That's what I was talking to our friend again, about his trip, and he's like, man, I just don't think the birds were there. And he was farther north than we were. And what I thought was interesting about that was, some of the locals that we talked to said, man, the snow geese are here earlier than what they normally are, which we did see quite a few snows. And I don't remember last year seeing a whole lot. And we went at the same time frame. So, asked the same question, and the locals are saying, yeah, the snows are here earlier than what they normally are. So we also saw what I thought was a good amount of ducks. Like I said, the buddy that I talked to that hunted a couple hours north of us yet, he said that he felt that they didn't see the number of ducks that they normally do. So it just it's interesting. You could plan this trip and it could be super warm. Like our last trip was actually pretty chilly. This trip, there was a lot of times you could go out there in a T-shirt. It was so warm. So, that probably had a lot to do with some of our frustrations, so to speak, or our bad luck. And it's just, one of those things where, I'm still trying to figure out like barometric pressure and, why the ducks were feeding in the mornings half the week. And then all of a sudden they stopped feeding in the mornings, just feeding in the evenings. Obviously it's warmer, so they're not having to, to go out and feed twice a day, to keep the fat, on, and, they're not burning as much. And so, was that part of it, or was, the barometric pressure, was it changing, or was there something, was it the moon phase, or what? Just trying to put all the pieces of the puzzle together to figure out why, it didn't pan out. So, but that's what keeps us coming back.
You can overthink it, can't you?
Oh, I'm an overthinker at the beginning. So.
It's hard not to, like, there's just so many, things to really dig into, and this is, to me, it's intriguing to want to sit and really dig into it, because you think that there is something you can figure out. There's a saying that I had heard that said you can't expect what you don't inspect. And that's kind of how I feel, about, the scouting, part of it. It's like, well, we can't expect to have a good scout or a good shoot unless we go put in the time to inspect and make sure, like, where are they feeding? Okay, this field. Okay, where in this field? Okay, what are they looking for? Okay, what does the spread look like? Okay, what is that? Like that's. But also from a dog side of it, right? Like, you can't expect what you don't inspect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't expect the dog to go out and perform when you first haven't inspected what they can do and put in the work to get them to your expectations when you hit the field.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's this time just goes by too fast. And this is where I feel like as I get older, I'm doing a better job slowing this down, right? Not getting flustered. Like, I'm not looking at quite frankly, I'm not looking at the 5 days we didn't have good shoots. I am really looking at the one day that we did and how great that was and how awesome it was and how, that's why we do this. In my younger years, I would have focused on the 5 bad days. And, I'm just learning, like, you can't roll back time.
Right.
Yeah.
So
enjoy that and kind of, keep that with you.
Yeah. I hate to break it to you, but the older you get, everything starts slowing down.
Jeez.
I went for a run on the last day, and man, I'm hurting from that.
That was a week ago.
I know
it
wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't quite a week.
No, it was a couple days ago.
But no, that's exactly right. It's and it's with anything. You as a younger kid, you're ambitious. You lot of different goals, a lot of different expectations, and as you get older, you start to understand. And I was in those shoes. I was the same way. Man, we got piles. It's all about this, and look at me. And anymore, I look back at that and how silly that was.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but it's part of maturity.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm to the point now. I've been on a lot of good hunts, through my years, and I still get amped up and my adrenaline flowing, when seeing those 200 pintails come in and, having a good shoot. But sometimes it's like you said, it's nice just to go out, like I mentioned earlier, to shoot just a few and watch my dog absolutely just love what they're doing. And that's my day.
Mm-hmm.
Or my son, taking my son out. He still wants to see some nice shoots too, but he's made the comment multiple times to me, which I'm super impressed with him, because he's the kid, and we've talked about him a couple times here on this trip, but he's the type of kid that he doesn't let something get in his way or bother him.
Mm-hmm.
He is in a very athletic grade, like we talked about, and there's, a lot of athletes, that are in his grade and that get a lot of attention. I mean, he could care less. He just does his own thing. He runs his cross country. He goes to work, loves to hunt, and he doesn't care what goes on around him. He doesn't care that there's a party that he wasn't invited to there, or he doesn't care that, that he didn't get to do this or do that. He just stays in his own lane and really, goes. And I just use that as an example because I know when I was his age, I cared that I wasn't invited to that party. I cared that the certain girl didn't like me. I cared that, this didn't this didn't happen to me or whatever, and so it's just interesting to watch his walk of life versus mine and see how much more I think better he's handled himself versus how I handled myself back then. And it's just it's interesting, and I just don't say that because he's my son. I just, as a individual, I think it's super interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, in today's social media era, it's all about the pile pics.
Oh yeah,
that's quite frankly. So I think I've talked about this in the past. You will not see a pile picture on the kennel page, on my personal page, because I believe that's one of the things that's wrong with waterfowl. It shouldn't be about that, right? Just like I have one eye out the window here as we're doing this podcast. I know you see me waving, my head all over the place because rut is definitely kicking on here, and we saw a couple bucks, dog and does here earlier today, and like I see this all the time. I just laugh now. It's like, you go on social media, somebody shot a deer. It might not be the biggest deer. And if it's not the biggest deer, there has to be this like story of like, oh, we have so much history with this deer. We have all this stuff. And I'm looking at this deer going like, dude, that's a 2.5-year-old deer. Don't tell me you have a whole like years of history with this thing. Like, come on. Like, just like it got your blood pumping. You were excited. You wanted to shoot. Great. Mm-hmm. Good for you. Who cares? Yep. But social media has just changed the way that people approach this thing. So,
or you get the person, especially a kid that shot a deer that's a little spike or something, you get people that are commenting, well, why the heck did you shoot that thing? And just the negative aspect to it. And it's like, what, that might have been that kid's first deer, or could whatever, or a guy's first deer. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's just.
But I guess why I bring that up is that I want to be clear that it's not that we didn't shoot birds that was frustrating. That was not it at all. It was actually the fact that, like, it's like once you think you have them figured out, you don't. And we thought on a few of these hunts, we had it figured out.
Oh yeah,
we had where they were, we had where they wanted to be. They were feeding hard. We got right on the X. Great high, great spread, great set, great everything. Nothing. Yep. That's what's frustrating. Mm-hmm. It's not that we didn't shoot. Like, I really don't care. I don't shoot the majority of the time. Yep. I don't care about that. I do care about the dogs getting retrieves, which obviously pulling the trigger has, that's a means to an end, with that. But it's not that.
Yep.
It's really not. Yep. So, but yeah, no. So we have some kind of a busy November coming up, which will lead to a busy December, which will lead to a busy January, which will lead to hopefully taking a breath in February. So,
and then it's right back to spring training.
Yeah, it really is. It'll roll right into it. So, otherwise, highlight of the trip for you?
Ranger.
That was the great one. Did we talk about Ranger?
We haven't talked about Ranger.
Okay, so Ranger, Ranger's my English setter that I got. I think he's 9 now. And there was a point in time that dude was a monster as far as a field trial dog goes. I mean, I field trialed Ranger off of horseback, which is a traditional way to field trial here in the States, and he was extremely successful. There was one season that he won 11 field trials in one season, which is just fantastic.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the dude was just this dog. It was just like the way he moved and the way he found birds, and he was so honest. He was never gonna break. He was always gonna be there with you. He was really a fun dog to handle. But since I stopped doing that, probably stopped when he was 4, so probably about 5 years ago, and he just hasn't got to hunt a bunch since then. Like, Whitney tries to hunt him, but with me, like I said, I think I was close to 90 days last year, right around in that ballpark waterfowl hunting. Like, just don't have a ton of time to upland hunt. And when I am not waterfowl hunting, I'd really like to be archery hunting. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like there's just not enough days to do it all. And so Ranger, unfortunately, and not fair to him, has kind of gotten the backseat as far as that goes and just hasn't got to hunt a bunch. But we got into a great pheasant. It was a great pheasant shoot.
Oh yeah,
it was a great pheasant shoot, and Ranger was fantastic.
He was fun to watch.
Yeah, he wasn't the polished dog that he once was. As far as he wasn't completely steady like he once was. He wasn't. But I'm not expecting him to be right. Like, what are my expectations? My expectations are that you weren't the same. At 9 years old, hunting very, very, very sparingly for the last few years, that you're not going to go, show up and be the field trial dog that you were 5 years ago. Like, that's not my expectation, right?
Yeah.
So now it's hard not to have that expectation, because when I watch him run, all I see are blue ribbons and trophies. But, that wouldn't have been fair to him.
Yeah.
So he had a blast. Probably my favorite. There were 2 birds that he did this with, but he had a point. We went in, kicked around, nothing. So my pointing dogs, they point. We go in and flush. A couple of my dogs, did retrieve. A couple of my dogs didn't. It's not their game, so I'm not going to force that on them. So if they weren't a dog that wanted to go retrieve, that's cool. You don't have to retrieve, right? Like, you're going to go be a pointer. And actually, Ranger, one of the biggest blessings that Ranger ever did for me was, as Easton was getting older, probably 12, 13, in there. I lost him at 13 and a half. The last couple of years when Easton was really slowing down, Ranger would go hunt. Ranger never really had an interest in retrieving. Ranger would go hunt, find a bird. Easton would walk by my side. We would go in. Before we went in flush, I'd tell Easton to sit. He sat down. I'd walk in, flush, boom, shoot the bird, release Ranger. He'd go find another bird. And if Easton wanted to take 10 minutes to pick up that bird and bring it back, he could go take 10 minutes. Like, it gave him more opportunities. So I'm very thankful for Ranger, for that. But one thing that Ranger was always good at was that if he said there was a bird there, there was a bird there. Sometimes he could point, and like, you could just tell, like, by his head starting to move around, his posture's not as staunch. Okay, either the bird moved or it's not there, relocate him and he goes. But if he is set, there is a bird there.
Yeah.
And there was twice that kick around, and I'd be like, well, you can tap him. What I mean by tap him is tap him on the head and say, okay, that was my relocate. They would do it, he wouldn't move. Do it, he wouldn't move. Do it, he wouldn't move. And I'm like, well, there must be a bird there. There's not. Do it. Oh, sure enough, he was like,
Rooster.
It was there. It was there. It was just that hadn't got up yet. So so that was definitely, I would agree, that was a highlight of me, for me too. And then the other one was strikes blind.
Oh, that was incredible.
That it was probably, as we look at it and we kind of onyx it out. I think 550's being conservative. I tend to be conservative when I don't know. But 550, I mean, that's a poke,
right?
Yeah. And he ran it beautifully. And he had, my last cast was sending him over a hill, and lost contact. And like we talked about, I think in a couple episodes ago, that's the difference between hunting and training. I never would have set up a blind like that in training, because once I lose them, right? But in hunting, like, it's not set up like a manicured, training field. And so, those are the fun times for me, because I'm like, gosh, like, this is what we work for. I think I made that comment when we got the bird back. I'm like, that's what we did. All the work we did this summer, it was for that bird.
Yep.
That's a cool thing.
And he did it to perfection.
Yeah.
Watching him do it to perfection with, I think it was only 2 handles.
It was 2 or 3 maybe.
Yeah. And then, like you said, and then just the unknowing, or what's the word I'm looking for, but just the anticipation when he went over that hill to come waiting for him. And it seemed like 10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
It might have been 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But it seemed like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
He was gone, and then here he come with that sprig back, and everybody was hooping and hollering, and because everybody's watching.
Well, it is. I think Kyle had said it was like, he thought it was like 45 seconds or so. I promised to me it felt like 45 minutes.
Right.
It probably was a couple minutes
for sure.
But it's just like when he goes over that edge, especially for me, I'm like, please,
right.
Just like, come on. Like, it's that it's the anticipation of, like, that college basketball game that that last second shot goes up and it feels like it hangs in the air forever.
Yep.
That's what this is like. You're just waiting. Now, that there's a real good chance he comes up over that hill without anything in his mouth, and then you got to give him another cast. But, like, where do you cast him to? Right. So then at that point, you're best off walking to that point that you can't see him anymore, and then running it from there. But you may still not know where that bird is.
Yep.
Right. So it was a very proud moment. And I'll tell you what, Strike is turning into, or has turned into, I should say. He's a monster. The dude is wicked talented. He can run any blind you put in front of him. He's the dog. He's incredibly good at marking. He's very driven. He just doesn't have that on the toenails look like Brock or Clyde or some of these guys, right? He actually sits in that blind so chill. Like if you'd look at him, you'd be like, does that dog even want to do this? Right?
Does he want to be here?
And then he goes and does the stuff he does, And so he is turning into, I just think, like when most people look at like what the ideal dog is, I have to imagine it's very close to Strike.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, he's fun to watch. And I've said that multiple times, even leading up here, because I got to handle him a couple times last year in Arkansas. And, you don't know that dog's there. And like you said, sometimes it's just like, does he want to be here? Mm-hmm. But then he just crushes everything, and he's just so happy. Mm-hmm. And, so he's a fun dog to watch. And just the story behind it, I know in the last episode we talked about that, to go check out. I think it was episode 7 of
6 or 7
of his story. And I remember that story to a T, even though I wasn't up here. I was helplessly 10 hours away, as you were trying to find him. But just that story to where he was, and the trust that you built into him and he has in you, it's special. It's very special.
Yeah, it's special.
But just to watch that bond and to watch him do what he loves is fantastic.
For sure. So what do you say? Wrap this thing up. We have a lot of stuff we got to try to get done yet today. So, so thank you guys for spending the time here with us. We'll come and talk with you, or I will at least come talk with you again here next week. But be sure to continue to follow along with us at Riverstone Kennels, the Instagram page, and we'll make sure to keep up to date with the hunts that we're on and what we have going on. So, thank you to Bret for being on with us to make this a little more enjoyable, so you don't have to just listen to my boring voice for an extended period of time. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes, and a special thank you to Yukonuba, because without them, we couldn't do what we do here, bringing this information to you.